No, we're doing that. Okay, so I was saying that, so after the destruction of the temple, there was a huge like now what in general, not only about Pesach, like now what with Sukkot, now what with worship to God and so on. But one of the big now what was now what with Pesach, and the rabbis there thought about the look for some kind of structure meal that will give the basis for the Pesach celebration, and then they instituted the Seder of Pesach in the way that in the basis of what we know. It was, of course, again, it was not as exactly as we know it today. There were many of the things that were very well known, like the four sons and a lot of the later songs that we're familiar with that were included later on. But the basis was modeled in the Mishnah by the rabbis after the destruction of the temple. And this is probably not new for most of you. The Seder of Pesach was modeled after the Greco-Roman Symposium. The Symposium was the formal high-class meal in the Greco-Roman world. It was a formal meal. That was the model. If I didn't bring Greek text about it, but you can, if some of you are interested in finding it, you can. Plato described this meal, and other of the Greek philosophers. It was very similar. There will be a host. People will come. They will drink wine. They will wash their hands. They will eat some kind of vegetables as an aperitif, some kinds of open their appetite. They will discuss some issues, some subject. They will have like philosophical discussions or political discussions. They will have a nice meal and with cups of wine. And all that situation was part of how that meal, that dinner, formal dinner, was done. The most notable aspects of the Seder, like the reclining that we do, the wine, the hand washing, the dipping of food, the types of food served, and even the issue of the discussion, they all have parallels in this symposium meal. No, not the subject. The subject is different. Not mapitom, the other way around. They saw themselves as. That's how we call it. That was for them. That was just the custom. Also, they didn't recline. We're going to see that in the Mishnah. They didn't recline for the meal. They were already reclined, but they didn't sit on chairs. They sat on like these couches, but they were already like reclined like this. So that's the way they ate. They ate like with the typical picture of the grapes like in the mouth, but they were already reclined. But there were a few important differences. The rabbis, they borrowed these customs, and I remember the first time I learned this, it was a little bit shocking because, this is such a Jewish thing, this is the Pesach Seder, and to learn that we actually took it from other people for pagans, no more or less, and so it was a little bit shocking. But then you understand that actually everything we took from the culture around it, even how we're dressed. Right, we're dressed now not with Jewish clothes. There's not such a thing as Jewish clothes.
Pagan in the sense that they didn't believe in the one God, but were they respected for their intellect, for example, by Jews?
That's an interesting question. I suppose I will look at parallel maybe with the world today. I think that you could find observant Jews that are respectful of Western knowledge, so science, society. And there will be observant Jews that there won't be. There are even today Jews that they despise like secular knowledge, and they believe there's no worth to it today. And most Jews, even the very observant Jews, they might say, of course, is important, it's good, it advances human beings. I suppose it was about something similar. Probably there were Jews that appreciated their intellectual achievements, and there were some Jews that they didn't care for them.
But they were Hasidic, like the Muhammad Shiremi,
Mhm.
the physicist, right? And he had
Yeah,
secondary
look.
education at the Sorbonne.
Yeah, there are examples. There are examples, and then you have a lot of Chabadnikim today that they don't want the kids to study English and math. So you can generalize in that sense, but I imagine both things happened at the time. So in a very practical sense, the rabbis probably look around them and say, okay. So how do we do this? How do we institute a Pesach ritual that is meaningful as the temple used to be in this new world? So okay, let's get that idea and see what we can do with it. So they converted to Judaism this like foreign pagan custom of the Greeks and the Romans. Yeah.
I think it was more as a lifestyle than a religious thing. It's just how they, if they were well off, they could afford to just recline like that. They had the furniture, they had the luxurious homes and so forth. And if you imitated that, it was as if, you put on a tuxedo.
Yeah.
If you had to rent the tuxedo, that was an adoption of the free class, how they had meals.
That's very interesting what Aaron says. Also, if we have other examples that our tourist guide here can attest to, like a lot of shuls of synagogues from the Mishnaic and Talmudic periods that they have pagan illustrations on them, like mythical creatures or stories that we know from Greek and Roman mythology, and they used it to probably didn't have a religious use to it. It was just decoration. They had as decoration in the synagogue. But today we wouldn't do. I mean, I wouldn't put probably a painting of a medieval master depicting the crucifixion of Jesus in a synagogue. Right? We laugh about it, but they did it. They had images of Greek and Roman gods in their synagogue as decoration. Probably they were much more open than we are. In a sense.
Like at least some of the Jews were well off.
Somewhere.
The temple had just occurred and they had to flee their homes.
Yeah. Probably there is something about that as well. So the study continues to develop. I mean, we're gonna study today about from the Mishnah, the very origin of it, but we're gonna see they continue to develop. And the first Haggadot. So I got a few examples for you here, but the few Haggadot, the first Haggadot were not composed until the 8th or 9th century. I mean, a proper text that they will use to follow the service, and it was not particularly about the Haggadot. It was true of Sidurim. So that's the same time that the first Sidurim started to be written, and the end of 9th century. Until then, people prayed this by heart. It was much more open. It was not such a structured prayer. It was much, and the end of 9th century, they started being much more structured when there was a book that showed it's a Seder, I guess, Sidur, Seder, Haggadah, Seder Shel Pesach. We started being a little more Ashkenazi, I suppose, and more Yeki with the way that we saw religion. So let's go inside the Mishnah then. So we started with the first Mishnah. We're talking about, again, we're studying the 10th chapter of the Tractate of Pesachim in the Mishnah. And there you go. Yeah. And it says there, I included the Hebrew in the page, but I'm only going to read the English, but you're welcome if somebody wants to look at the Hebrew as well. It says, another thing. When I write the translation of the Mishnah, what is in bold is a literal translation of the Mishnah. what is not in bold are like English words in order to connect it and explain it. But the actual Mishnah says, poured first cup. So the whole first part about describing what it is an addition. I'm going to read it because you're going to help us, but for you to understand that the text of the Mishnah is only what is in bold. Okay, so the Tana. What is a Tana? Somebody else here. The Tanaim were the rabbis of the time of the Mishnah. There was a name given to the rabbis in the time of the Mishnah. Tana comes from the word in Aramaic for Hebrew is leshanen, mean to repeat. The way to study when you didn't have books was just to take the text and read 1,000. Sorry, not the text. Listen to somebody what they were taught to you and just repeat it over and over and over. That's how they learned. And then you will remember it and you will go to a different Beit Midrash, to a different house of study, and will repeat what you learned to somebody else. So that's how these traditions were passed between them. So the Tana means one of the rabbis of the Mishnah. In this case, we don't have a name. So we have it's an unnamed Tana that is right in the beginning of the Mishnah. Okay, so he started describing the beginning of the Seder. So it says, Mazgulo kos rishon, the attendants poured the wine of the first cup for the leader of the Seder, for the person that is leading the Seder. And we start the Seder in the same way that we started today with the first cup, Kadesh. Today we call it Kadesh. That was the first part. Now, why we say we said pour the wine, might be that the idea is also mixed, and this Dr. Kuhl explained it down there, but it's somebody that I've seen still in the Haredi world, that in the time of the Mishnah, nobody drank wine undiluted. Wine was always mixed with a little bit of water.
Not soda?
Not soda, I suppose no. Yeah, I've seen that. The idea was pretty much to lower the alcohol. That's the whole point. Probably their wine was as strong as ours. It was like 12 degrees of alcohol, something like that. So when you mix it with water, the idea was to lower it to 5 or 6. So it was like having a beer. So instead of having 4 cups of strong wine, you have like 4 beers. So you were much less intoxicated that you could be if you drank only wine.
In the New Testament, the first miracle that Jesus was supposed to have done was to turn water into wine.
Yeah.
And the idea was at a wedding, which is what this was, they served the best wine. And as the evenings went on and they were running low, they would dilute a little more. So when he had turned it into wine, everyone said, well, you saved the best wine for last. Instead of diluting it as we go,
yeah,
you say, well, this was a Jewish home with a Jewish wedding. This is how they kept the wine going.
To drink undiluted wine was considered to be rude, because it means you were a drunk. I mean, that was the idea. I mean, the idea again was to dilute the wine in order to avoid being intoxicated. So that was also true in the Seder, during the Seder. Okay, and then there's a discussion between the rabbis that, again, for us is obvious because we know what we do today, but for them was not. And the reason I included the discussion is for you to understand, guys, that when we're reading the Mishnah, we're reading a Judaism that is still in formation. It is not what we know. It's the beginning of what we know, but it was still malleable. It was still like in the process of being decided and established. So Beit Shammai say one recites the blessing over the day. That is the kiddush. Over the wine, and thereafter he recites the blessing over the wine. So the other way of what we do today, right? First the kiddush, and then the borei peri hagafen. Right? The kiddush. Remember, when we do kiddush, we say 2 blessings. We say one blessing over the wine, borei peri hagafen, and one blessing of the kiddush. So Beit Shammai says no, and this is not only for Pesach, it will be true also for Shabbat, for everywhere. We'll do first the Kiddush, and then the wine. And Beit Hillel says, no, one recites the blessing over the wine first, and thereafter recites the blessing over the day. And of course, as in most cases, we do what Beit Hillel says, so that's the way we do it. We said by the Pri Hagafen, and then we do the Kiddush, both for Shabbat and for Chagim. The reasons why each one said that, they're explained in the Talmud. I didn't include them here, but they're explained in the Talmud why they say what they say. The Talmud loves to do that. The Talmud comes, takes the Mishnah, and tries to explain it and say, hey, wait, you said that. Why did you say that? I mean, that's what they do a lot of the time. Okay, and then I brought a note for myself saying that the Mishnah, in the Mishnah there's no urchatz. If you take the Haggadah, so we have Kadesh, urchatz, and then karpas, right? That's the order. Kadesh, the blessing of the wine. Urchatz, that is the ritual washing that we do without a blessing, right? The Seder, we wash the hands without the blessing. And then we do karpas. In the Mishnah, there's no urchatz, there's no washing of the hands. And most probably, it was not included because it was obvious for the rabbis. It's like it's like writing, and you have to open the bottle of the wine before you pour the wine into. I mean, you don't have to write that in the Mishnah. But for them, they need also to write to wash the hands. It was obvious for them. Washing the hands is not an issue of hygiene. Washing the hands, if an issue has to do with the system of purity and impurity, tumah v'tehara, that it was particularly important in the time of the temple. And the rabbi of the Mishnah, that were still very close to the time of the temple, were very meticulous with the idea, with the ritual purity. So, in a moment. And so they have the custom was to wash your hands, to do netilat yadayim. Also before eating veggies, not only bread. Today we still do it for bread. I mean, several people do netilat yadayim every time they eat bread. Many of us will do it only for Shabbat before the challah. But in the time they wash their hands also when they ate veggies and other foods that they were susceptible of being of receiving tumah, or getting impure if you don't wash your hands first. So that the reason the first was obvious. We're going to eat now a veggie for the karpas, so we wash our hands first because of that. And they will do it probably with a blessing. We don't do a blessing anymore because we never wash our hands before veggies anymore. Yes, Moshe.
Well, it's interesting what you say, because where is it written or stated that it's required to light candles and take a dish and hamotzi on Shabbat?
In the Talmud.
The Talmud.
Yeah.
So is it written in the Talmud to wash your hands before?
Not as part of the regulations of Shabbat, because again, it was obvious for them. There's much discussion about washing hands in a different tractate. They speak about purity and things like that.
I mention it because most Jews that I know here or in New York will do those rituals, but won't necessarily wash their hands. It's just interesting that if they give it, or not stated.
At a different time. At some point, and I didn't speak also, I didn't go too much into the issue of the blessings, because the first, this urchatz, we don't do the blessing, we don't say netilat yadayim. We just wash. Then we'll do netilat yadayim before the matzah, when we eat the matzah, much later in the Seder. And probably when they wash their hands before veggies, they did say netilat yadayim, because for them it was no different from the eating bread. And probably there was a process here of at some point saying the blessing and then saying, wait, but we wash the hands twice, so we don't shouldn't say it. So to use different blessings, and then some point say, wait, but they don't really wash the hands for veggies anymore. I think we shouldn't say a blessing over it. And then at some point, probably it took another 1,000 years, we got to the situation that we are today. That we don't bless before doing that. Need to know what? Okay, I continue with the Mishnah. Now we're in the third Mishnah of the chapter. That they say, "Eviu lefanav metavel bechazeret." Says the attend. First of all, this here an assumption that there are attendants. That's already interesting. But we'll get to that in a moment. They brought before the person. Doesn't say what they bring. Eviu lefanav. They brought before him. Right? That's what it says. And then he says he dips the chazeret into water or vinegar in order to taste some food before he reaches the bread. It says that again, le parperet apat. It's a funny way of writing it. For reasons, some people he translated here, Dr. Cope, as the dessert of the bread, meaning what it comes after the bread, meaning the bitter herbs. We do remember we do in the Seder, we wash the hands, we eat the matzah, and then we eat the maror, the bitter herbs. So it says that idea is he dips the chazeret, and chazeret here is not the chazeret what we know in Hebrew. If I ask those of you that speak Hebrew what is chazeret, you will tell me it's horseradish. That's the modern meaning of chazeret in Hebrew. But chazeret in the Talmud is lettuce. The modern word chasa doesn't exist in the Talmud. The word for chasa for lettuce was chazeret.
In Eastern Europe, when the time came for the Seder, there was no lettuce.
I'm sure it wasn't.
So they came up with a substitute.
Yeah.
The bitter horseradish was that because they couldn't find lettuce everywhere. So they substituted the one for the other.
Right. I tell this story a lot, so some of you might already heard it. Yeah.
On the matzah.
Right. Because that's where my grandparents did. So that's what we know. So this story I always tell is that once we studied this chapter from the Talmud with one other of my teachers, with Rabbi David Golinkin, and we were studying in the Bet Midrash, and Rabbi Golinkin said he's a scholar, so he doesn't deal much with like touchy feelings. He just goes to the point. So he says, you know why? In the Talmud said that you need to use for maror, you need to use chasa. Actually, the Talmud gives you 5 different kinds of lettuce that you could as maror. Why did that say horseradish? Because there was no horseradish in Israel or in the Middle East at the time. So he says actually, he says, according to the Talmud, you don't fulfill the obligation of eating maror with horseradish. Right, when the Jews got to Europe, there was nothing else, so they had to find out something. That's how it started, but it was a mistake, and some of the students got so angry that just left the class because he was like, "You're telling me that my great grandparent, that he was a Hasid of whatever, didn't fulfill the mitzvah of maror?" Yes, that's what I'm saying. They didn't do it because they were eating horseradish, but they were furious. Any case, so after that lesson, even if we always have horseradish in my table, we actually do the blessing of the maror over the lettuce and not over the horseradish.
But yeah. Lettuce, as far as I think myself and a lot of people are concerned, is not bitter. Maror is bitter.
That's exactly the point. That's one of the reasons the horseradish shouldn't be used as maror today that we have the possibility, because it's spicy, right? It's strong. It's not bitter. So that's the point. So when you eat lettuce, especially some kind of lettuce, and if you eat like more of the stem of the lettuce, that's bitter, not the radish. Yeah.
We had a station that grew lettuce for experiments, and when it was done with the experiments, the lettuce kept growing taller and taller. You tried to eat any of the leaves or stems once it was more mature than just that little bunch at the ground. Oh, was it bitter? So there is something to it being bitter if you wait long enough to pick it. If you pick it at the right time, it's still sweet, but after that, it's very bitter.
You know what? I'm surprised there is no some kind of Haredi startup that they do that for Pesach. They said it like lemeadrin mina meadrin maror for Seder, something like that.
Yeah.
They're really bitter. And we have a business idea here. We should. Okay, so what they're saying again. So what we're saying here is, so they bring some food before the leader of the table. It's not clear if they bring only the veggies, meaning what we call today karpas, or if we bring like a lot of different foods, and everything that's gonna eat was brought at the same time. It's not clear. But he does start eating by dipping the lettuce in water or vinegar, and that's the first thing that he eats, as we do with the karpas. And
What's the origin of the word karpas?
That's interesting. Karpas is a word that is Persian, or it exists in Persian, in Arabic, and in another Middle Eastern language, and it means celery. Celery. Mm. Yeah, that indeed some people use celery as karpas. I don't particularly like celery, so I don't. But and then they brought before him matzah and charoset, right? This is here. הביאו לפניו מצה וחזרת וחרוסת. חזרת is here as well. So they bring the matzah, the maror, and the charoset, ושני תבשילים, and two cooked dishes in honor of the festival. The idea is you like fulfill your obligation of having two different kinds of cooked dishes. That's the dinner. That is shulchan orech. So here we have already kadesh urchatz, karpas. There's no yachatz. There's no cutting of the matzah that doesn't exist in their time. We haven't also started the Magid. We haven't teach anything about the Exodus. We're just eating here. People will be very happy with this seder. There's nothing, no learning here. But we have doesn't say, but we have the rachatzah, because obviously they wash hands. Motzi, matzah, maror, korech. Also, we don't have it here, and shulchan orech. So we have most of the seder already here in these two mishnayot. Most of the seder is already there. So the matzah, the chazoset, and two dishes, and then of course we have another discussion between the rabbis. The first Tana that we don't know the name says, even if the charoset is not a mitzvah. He said it's not a mitzvah of the charoset. It says meaning it's a custom. We're not obligated, but it's not a mitzvah. And of course, Rabbi Eliezer ben Tzadok says, actually, it is a mitzvah to eat charoset. What are you talking about? My grandfather used to make charoset and eat it in the Seder. Of course, it's a mitzvah. But the Mishnah won't decide it. We'll leave it at that. And as it says, "Ubamikdash ayom meviim lefanav gufo shel Pesach." And say when the temples too, they will bring also the korban, the meat of the korban of Pesach. And then you have all the food in front of you. So the first conclusion that we can get here is that at least in terms of the Mishnah, they only ate after they only did the studying after they already ate everything. Only then they started doing we're going to see now they're going to start studying. I imagine that at some point the rabbis change. You can say, well, if we do it that way, the people just will eat and they go to sleep and they won't do this study. So let's get them to study first, first homework, and then you guys can eat.
Celery or parsley
Mm-hmm.
has the reputation of being a breath freshener for cleansing of the palate.
Hmm.
So after you've had that bitter herb, then you cleanse your palate with the green.
But you have it before.
Oh, I got it in the wrong order.
Or no, but probably cleaning the palate is right because the idea is also to open your appetite. That's the idea. And so let's see what Dr. Kolb here helps us. It's right there. Yeah, it's Arabic. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think I said Persian, Arabic, and I think there was another one. Aramaic. Aramaic, right? That was there. Anyway, so first of all, it's interesting that all the time they bring in front of him. Who's doing all the bringing? I mean, but probably there were some Jews, as we said before, that were well off enough to have servants that would bring them the stuff, but most Jews probably didn't. So the idea maybe is, we say today sometimes in our Seder, that the idea is that everyone feels feels free with the fact that somebody else is serving them. So they will bring to themselves. They will bring, I mean, I will bring you, you will bring me. I mean, I will serve your wine, you serve my wine. In a way, because like to feel like we are like well-off people, that we are free and
Look what it says on the second page at the top.
Yeah.
Under code. Although many Jews probably cannot afford servants, the Mishnah relates each Jew on the Seder evening as if he had the upper class.
Yeah. Was they brought in front of him. And the Mishnah, I said before, that does not say what is it that they bring in front of him. So as I said before, some people say only veggies and lettuce, others say it's the whole meal. This is also important to imagine this. They didn't have tables as we have. They didn't sit to eat around the table. They had these beds that they were like reclining, and they will bring in front of them little tables like this, like it will be like more like trays, by what trays they could stand. So that's how they bring it. We'll bring the whole tray with the veggies and the food in front of the person.
First of all, it shocked me because there was no woman there, like not even
Not even the bride.
Yeah, she wasn't there, no woman was there. And we sat around for 3 hours, just kibitzing. And then they brought the food on a platter? No, on a stool. They brought the food on a stool. And we ate this delicious food in 10 or 15 minutes, and then everybody went home. It was astonishing to say the least of this.
Right. That's very nice. But yeah, but in this case they will bring this kind of tray that has also like legs, so you could like bring it and put it there for them to eat. And
But it's exactly what I'm talking about. It's exactly what they describe here, where like servants bring the food out. You never heard it. You don't have servants.
Yeah, but that's the idea. The idea that we want to feel like that. So we bring to each other. We bring to each other. That's the way that we do it. So the Mishnah, I we said before, maybe stating that we continue to eat appetizers until the final appetizer, so the food is brought. And it's important to know the difference here between our custom today. At least I grew up we will do, the kiddush, then we will have like 1 or 2 little celery, little parsleys for karpas, and then there will be no food until the meal, until the matzah. So for an hour you were starving. I mean, and I think the rabbis from the town will be appalled because they brought them the food and they started eating, blah 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 blah. They will eat it, and then they will start. They will continue doing the studying.
Like in Chile, where you grew up, was it
Ashkenazi? Ashkenazi. Very, very Ashkenazi.
Most Chileans were Ashkenazi?
Yeah. In South America, most communities in South America are Ashkenazi in origin. Russia and Poland.
I see. Okay, I thought like Okay, doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. A lot of people are confused because they speak Spanish, so they might be Sephardic. You know,
Yeah,
the-
but like, for example, the first Jews in what is today the United States,
Mhm,
you know where they came from? Brazil.
mhm.
They went from Portugal, they were from the Inquisition
Mm-hmm.
to Brazil, and then from Brazil they came to
Yeah.
Newport, Rhode Island.
Sorry, the very first Jews in Chile were also probably Marranos or in the 16th, 17th century, but they were very little and they didn't like establish a formal community. The first community were founded at the beginning of the 20th century.
I met a couple, the woman, in Upan. She was Marrano from
Mhm.
Mexico. From New Mexico, which was part of Spain
Yeah,
until the Americans came along.
and no surprise. So I have already implemented for many years an idea that I learned actually from Rabbi David Hartman, Alav Shalom, one of the very modern liberal Orthodox rabbis in Jerusalem, that we can go through the way of the rabbis in the Talmud, and actually for the karpas to bring a whole platter of veggies, with a platter of different veggies, different vegetables. So you can have potatoes, and you can have carrots, and you can have parsley, and you can have celery, and you can have kohlrabi, and you can have whatever you want that is not maror. And you can just continue nourishing that until the meal. You don't have to stop. You're already blessed with a Pri Adama. So you can just continue eating that all the way into this. And then that way, you are not starving. You're not in a hurry to get to the meal, so you can actually put more emphasis on the learning and on the content of the Haggadah and on the Seder. So it's it works much better.
Boiled potatoes and boiled eggs that are on the table.
Mhm.
On the food.
Yeah,
People can.
that definitely helps. And then after the appetites are completed, right? Sorry.
I was gonna just add to that, is that we always use an individual little special bowl for
Mhm.
each individual at the table with the parsley and the celery and the egg and the salted water. Has been our tradition.
Nice.
Mhm.
Thanks. All right, so we finished the appetizers, right? And then the servants, right, bring in front of him the main foods of the festival, meaning the matzah, the maror, the lettuce, and the charoset. Now, the matzah is explicitly commanded by the Torah. You know, Chag HaMatzot, you're supposed to eat matzah. The rabbis are very thoughtful with people that have digestive problems with the matzah. They said, you only need to eat matzah for the Seder. That's a mitzvah. The rest of the week, you don't have to.
You only you can eat bread.
No, you can't. No.
You can
No,
make
you don't have to
rolls,
eat matzah. You can eat whatever you want, but it's
Still
not
not allowed to
chametz,
have-
but not matzah. You don't have
but you
to.
can make your own Passover rolls, which
Right.
are kosher for Passover, so
If you don't want to.
that can be.
That's
place
what
of all.
I'm saying. You could imagine, because it's Chag HaMatzot, that you need to eat matzah every day as a mitzvah. And no, it's a mitzvah to eat matzah only the first night.
If you're on a diet and trying to avoid carbs, no, you don't eat much of the rest of the week.
You eat the minimum amount on the Seder, and that's it.
Right.
But today here you have so many, like whole wheat and no, I haven't probably sort of no gluten matzah, I suppose. All these different kinds. Then the letter, the charos, the maror, of course, also mandated by the Torah, right? To al matzot umerorim yuchlu. That's the way that the verse from the Torah says. On matzot and bitter herbs you eat it, meaning the sacrifice. Charoset does not appear in the Torah. And charoset is a mixture, of course, of wine and fruit or wine vinegar and fruit. And it looks like it was, for us today, it's a special Pesach food, but it looks like in the time of the Mishnah, it was just a very common food in the Greco-Roman world. Everyone ate it. It was normal food.
But not in the Torah,
It doesn't appear in the Torah.
but that.
No, only the Torah, the written Torah. Yeah. Actually, we just saw that it is in the Mishnah. The Mishnah doesn't explain what it is, but it's in there in the Mishnah. And it was probably added to the Pesach meal after the destruction of the temple as a way to provide more food for the Seder, right? We don't have the Pesach, the Korban, we don't have the sacrifice anymore. So, well, at least let's have the Charoset to have another thing. So we have the matzah, we have the maror, well, and the Charoset. If not, it will be only the matzah and the maror. It will be like, okay, so bread and lettuce. That's why we have him for Pesach. Yeah.
How did the sweetness come into our culture when it's reminiscent of bricks?
Well, because probably was not at the beginning. There was an explanation that was added later. That's part of what we're saying. Ken Mark.
No, what you said before about the fact that we only have to eat matzot on the first day, but like say, what do we do with the verse in Exodus that says Shivat Yamim matzot tochelu?
So the rabbis understood it that in the afuch al afuch. Understand that means that you are not supposed to eat chametz for 7 days, but you only need to eat matzah the first night, not even the first day, the first night, only for the Seder.
Only for the Seder.
Yeah.
Not even the first day, like the next.
Right, the next day you don't have to. Well, again, you need to say a motzi as you do in every festival for lunch. So probably you're gonna have to do it over matzah, but you could use also those different kinds of matzah that are not that kind of matzah that are considered to be bread. The blessing is a motzi, but they are not considered matzah enough to fulfill the obligation of the first night. For example, like matzah. Yeah, that's a very good example. And of course, in the Talmud, they give to the Charoset other meanings, including what you're saying, like the idea of the mortar using the bricks. It's a funny story that I learned actually not from Dr. Cole, but later from Rabbi Golinkin, that it looked at some point for the recipes for the Charoset, there was some kind of mistake of a scribe, and the word Charoset came changed into Charsinan. That means like Charsinan is like when you make like pots with it. It's like ceramics, kind of ceramics. So people at some point, some people believe that the Charoset had to be made with apple, wine, cinnamon, and a little bit of brick powder in order for it to be Charoset. And the funniest story in that respect, it will be a little bit taste over there. The funny story is that during the American Civil War, there were a group of Jewish soldiers in the Union Army, and they wanted to celebrate Pesach. They didn't have apples. So what they did for Charoset, they just put a brick. That was their Charoset. Just put a brick they found around. Yeah. And
I mean, there had to be Jewish southern folk before that.
Imagine so, yeah. They could have borrowed from them. It's like, hey guys, you have some apples.
Like at Christmas time and World War I.
Yeah, and no, they have a soccer game and everything. Yeah. Anyway, so let's go with the next Mishnah. The same Mishnah says like this: it said that the attendants or whoever, right, poured the second cup. So we're getting to the second cup for the leader of the Seder. And here the son asked his father. That's what it says That's it, meaning the literal translation of the Mishnah. What he asked, the questions about the differences between Passover and a regular night. And this is something that I learned this year, guys, for preparing this lesson. And if the son does not have the intelligence, like to ask questions on his own, then his father teaches him the questions. What are the questions? Why is this night different from all other nights? As on all other nights, we eat leavened bread and matzah, whatever we want. On this night, all matzah, only matzah. And on all other nights, we eat other vegetables. On this night, we eat bitter herbs. As on all other nights, we eat roasted, stewed, or cooked meat. And on this night, all roasted. As on all other nights, we dip the veggies in liquid only once. On this night, we dip it twice. And according to the intelligence and of the son, his father teaches him, and he begins with disgrace and concludes with glory, and he expands from an Aramean, try to destroy my father, until he concludes the entire section. So this is most of the Maggid that we have today. But again, so like pay attention to some of the differences. First of all, as we said before, we already ate, right? Our modern order is Kadesh Urchat, Karpas Yachat, Maggid, and then Rachatza, Motzi, Matzah, Maror, Korech, Shulchan Orech. Only then we eat, right? After we did all the Maggid, and we did all the matzah, and we eat the maror, and we did the sandwich, and then we eat. In the Mishnah, they ate before the second cup. The second cup, they fill it just before we start with the Maggid. Now that we do it up to this day. We do fill the second cup before starting the Maggid, but we don't drink it. And we only drink it at the end of the Maggid before the meal.
The order of the Seder is interesting because you have these things with the 4 questions and the 4 sons, and this is for children. And then after that, you have all of the rabbinical discourses, how many
plagues
there actually were. And finally, after the 4th cup at the end, after the Karamazon, then after everybody's had all that wine, then you have the sobriety test. Who knows when? Haggadah. If you're drunk enough, you can't follow through that anymore. And if you can, then you're sober.
Depends how much you diluted your wine. That's the
Or this is the most important. It says right here in the first paragraph how important Pesach is. And there's enormous emphasis on the food.
Yeah.
Necessarily on the learning, but on the rituals associated with the food that are part of the Seder.
I think they go together. I always thought that the Seder of Pesach was like the first, like, informal education learning activity that we have in history, that we continue to do in youth movements, because the whole idea of the Peulot in a youth movement is that you learn through experience. So you don't just sit down the kids and lecture, as we do in schools, and that the kids hate. We play a game about the first Aliyah, and the kids, as they're playing, they're learning the things about the first Aliyah. So here, the same idea. I think you eat, you sing, you ask questions, you discuss, and then you are learning through those things. You are learning the story of the Exodus. So it's learning through all your senses, not only through just your intellect. That's part of the idea. What's interesting here, what I learned this year, I think it was very interesting, is that the Mishnah says, as we said before, and here the son asked his father, like, comma, and if the son does not have the intelligence, then his father teaches the questions. So it looks like that the kid could ask whatever he wanted. I mean, the kid, the best case scenario, like plan A was that the kid says, yeah, well, Dad, why we have three matzahs? I don't understand why I have three matzahs. Or you know, why did Pharaoh didn't want the Jews to leave Egypt? Or, I mean, his own questions. And then you answer the questions, and that the discussion that fulfills the obligation of the Maggid. And the plan B is, if the kid doesn't have the intelligence to do it, then the father helps him with Raman Ishtana. Like, okay, you can ask, you know, what's the difference between matzah? You can, the father can help the kid ask the questions using the Manishtana as a guiding line. But the Manishtana is the plan B. Of course, with time, now we have the melody, and now we have the beautiful custom of the smaller kid in the house, the younger kid, the younger doing the singing the Manishtana, and it's beautiful, right? Last year in my house, my third daughter Shira did it for the first time, and everyone like just wanted to cry, and so it's beautiful, but it looks that originally was not it was not what the Orso intended. It was not the idea of the Orso.
In our house, Shalev was the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
So very early he had to learn these to show he could do this. But every year of his life, well into his 20s, he was still the youngest at the table. Because we kept inviting people who are our age to our Seder.
Right.
And none of them were younger than he was until we had to end up with grandchildren finally. And he said, what a relief. I don't have to do this. I'm nearly 30 years old. And
He did it like for 25 years. You know?
Yeah,
I don't think.
I went to my maternal grandparents' Seder every year until my grandfather died when I was 12. And I said, always said the Manishana, and then he died, and we went to my great uncle, and I never said it again.
Yeah, at some point you don't do it anymore. That's it is a bummer. Anyway, also look something interesting about I know that you guys pay attention about the content of the questions, because they are not the questions that you guys know. They're very similar. They're not the ones that you know. You can even maybe look into the Hebrew. It'll be easier if you look into the Hebrew maybe. למען השתנה הלילה זה מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, הלילה הזה כולו מצה, we're fine. Then, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, הלילה הזה מרור. It is the same that we have, but it looks like there was not original question there. It was added to the Mishnah by later editors because of the Haggadah. So the evolution went like this. It was not there originally, then it appeared in the Haggadah. It's in the Haggadah, so it has to be in the Mishnah. So they put it back inside. But then שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בשר צלי שלוק ומבושל. And we eat meat that is either roasted or stewed or cooked. And no, this night we eat only roasted. We don't do that question anymore. We don't ask about the meat in the Seder. So that's obviously it looks like it's alluding the korban, the sacrifice. That's what it looked like. The question is whether that's true or not. And so today we say ein anu matvilin. Anu matvilin. Afilu pa'am achat. So this is it's the same subject, but the difference here is very nuanced. In the Mishnah said, we always matvilin, we always dip once. This night we dip twice. That's weird. But today, veggies or things, but they will always do that. Today we say in our Haggadah, you look at the Manishtana in the Haggadah over there, you'll find it says, "Ein anu matvilim afilu pa'am achat." We don't dip even once, and tonight we do twice. So we still do twice. The difference is that in our days we're not used to dipping food. So we say that in the text. I mean, the dips here are the first one with the karpas when you put it in water, and the second one is in maror in the charoset. So we dip twice. Yeah, we dip twice. In a normal meal, You will only dip in the beginning. You only dip the salad in the salt or in the vinegar, but you wouldn't dip again. In their times. Today we don't dip at all. Twice. Yeah.
Today we just season the salad, that's all.
Right. All right. That's true. And then there's a question that is not here, right? A question that we asked today and it's not in the Mishnah. Remember which one? Think about the Manishtana. There's a question that you know from the Seder, but it's not here in the text of the Mishnah. There?
Mesubin.
The leaning, right? The reclining,
Mesubin.
right? The four questions today is Shebechol Aleilot Anochim Ben Yoshvim uBen Mesuvim Ben Yoshvim uBen Mesuvim Alayla Ze Kulanu Mesuvim. Again, because in the time of the Mishnah, you were always reclined. Also in Pesach, there was no difference. There was nothing to ask. When the custom changed and people started sitting in the table like we do, so now yes, why we're reclining suddenly in Pesach? So now it's weird. Like what is all this reclining going on? So then that's where included that new question later on.
So the right-handed leads to the left, but if the left-handed person leads to the right, you're not.
We all have to relate to the left because it's not. Actually, it's funny you say that. First of all, because if not, we bump each other's head. But not in a more. The Talmud already said that because of the way that our body is made, if you lean here and you eat, you can choke much more easily if you lean to the other side. That is your lean to the left.
Huh.
Yeah. They want to touch the food with, yeah.
Have your left hand down while you're leaning, so you can use your clean hand to touch the food.
Yeah.
You wash your hands.
Mm-hmm.
I once worked in Sri Lanka and. When you lift yourself to the left.
That's what I was
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Yeah. That's what they say. And so we see the difference here in the way the Manishtana has evolved that reflects the changes in our culture. Some other thing that I wanted to say. Yeah, about the meat. So the other Mishnah, we didn't say it before, but the Mishnah said at the end that they bring, right, we read it, they bring at some point also the meat in front of him. And here there's a question about the meat. So that's the reason that a lot of scholars used to think that these Mishnayot were very old, even from temple times. When the temple still existed, there was still a sacrifice in Pesach. But modern scholars, including Dr. Kolk, believe that actually that's not the case. That the whole Seder was developed, as we said in the beginning, after the destruction of the temple. There was no Seder before. So what are these questions? So how to explain the question about the meat? It looks like for many years, the custom was still to eat roasted meat in Pesach. As a remembrance of the sacrifice. So for many, many, many years, after the destruction of the temple, into the Talmudic period and beyond, everyone ate roasted lamb for Pesach. And at some point, they changed the custom to the point where even in Ashkenazi Judaism, it's forbidden. I mean, in the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, the rabbi that writes for the Ashkenazim, forbids to eat roasted lamb in Pesach. So nobody thinks that you are eating the sacrifice, that you are trying to do the sacrifice because there's no temple. So therefore, we started eating chicken and matzo balls and all that stuff. The only ones that still do it, in the Sephardi world, there are people that still do it, and the ones that I understand that still like mamash makpidim, that really take care to actually do it, are the Yemenites to eat roasted lamb.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's the classical, the bone, or
Yeah.
say a whole chicken, when you use the chicken neck,
Yeah.
that would be roasted in the oven. If it was a turkey, it maybe or a chicken, whichever was served. And that was on the same.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go. Thank you.
Okay, Moshe.
See you next week.
Well, Finison, yeah. You can actually, if you want later, see the recording to see the part you're gonna miss. I mean, you're gonna only continue for a little bit more.
Not only do you talk Hebrew, you
And good thing that you don't listen to me speak in Spanish.
my
Yeah.
rabbi is so
Okay. You can take it. You can take it as a project. That's fine. And we read in the Mishnah here that he says also that he begins with disgrace and concludes with glory, meaning that we're telling the story of the Exodus. You should, a very nice way. You should start the bad stuff. Should you say at the beginning, and end with the good stuff. Like finish it. Like have a happy ending. You can start with a not so nice part, but finish it with something nice. Finish with something nice. And then you should teach from the passage from Deuteronomy, an Aramean tried to destroy my father. Arami Oved Avi, that it was a text that in the Torah, in the Varim, it was meant to be said when you brought the Bikurim to the temple, and until the end of that section. Okay, so let's see. There's something that we haven't mentioned. So we said that the main part of the Seder is telling the story of the Exodus. The Mishnah notes that there are two things to this. The first is that telling the story by beginning with disgrace and concluding with praise. And in the Talmud, they debate whether the disgrace is the physical slavery in Egypt or the spiritual degradation of our idol worshiping forefathers, like even before. What is considered to be the disgrace here? And the praise is a praise to God for taking us out of Egypt. That's very clear. And the second element is an extended midrash on this piece of Deuteronomy. And really, that's a part that most people, if it doesn't sound familiar to you, it's because that's what most people like skip over during the Seder, because it's like very complicated. And this is and this word, each word explain it, and so a lot of people just don't read that part. But still, it's not clear why those verses Davka were chosen and not, maybe the story of the Exodus from Shemot. I mean, why Davka this part from Deuteronomy? And the opinion of Dr. Culp in this case is that the likeliest answer is that they are brief yet comprehensive. If you wanted a nice summary of the story, the rabbis believe that this was it. And they connect those few verses with the original story in Exodus, and that's his own commentary. The thing with the words, and this is very interesting what he writes here, Dr. Culp, is the words Arami Oved Avi, that is the beginning of the paragraph, you can translate it either like Arami Oved Avi, like my forefather Avi was a wandering Aramean, Arami Oved Avi, he was a wandering Aramean, in which case we're talking about Jacob, right? Or we can read an Aramean tried to kill my father, Arami Oved Avi. I mean, like avod como leaved, como in the Megillah, like lashmid laarog uleaved. So we can translate it as an Aramean tried to kill my forefather, in which case it is Lavan to whom the verse refers. The Haggadah understand it in the second way. So the Haggadah, in the rabbis in the Haggadah, when they try to explain it, they will translate it and they will talk to it in the second way, meaning like if it's Lavan, not they don't consider it might be Jacob. Okay, guys, I think we're gonna end up here today. I think we have 14 minutes. So I don't want to finish too close to 12. And I think we're gonna end up here. So next year, next week. Well, next year, but Thursday is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so the Atchalat Hashana. No. Next week we're gonna finish the last Mishnah, and we're gonna study the rest of the Mishnayot, and we're gonna go follow with the other parts like after the Mishnah that we know and like and love. And that's it, guys. I'm gonna I recorded the lesson, so I'm gonna probably upload it somewhere, and you can watch it again if you want, or if you have any questions, you can go there. Yes, Elisheba.
Can you send us a link for this text?
I can send you the text. I mean, it's just
I want the text,
yeah. I can send it to the people that participated.
Okay.
I try if I
Because I'd
remember.
like to print it out.
Yeah, what I wanted to say. If I remember also for next week, I'll try to send it also in advance for the people
Okay.
that don't come, so you can print it for the lesson. It might be easier for you. If only if you want to take notes or something.
Oh, and Rabbi, where can we access the recording?
I probably upload it to the Facebook of the community or YouTube. I'll send the links. I'll send the links as well. All right.
Great. Thank
Very
you.
good.
To be announced.
Toda rabah.
Sure.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
Okay,
you.
take care.
Thank you, Rafael.
Yom
Bye,
Tov
everybody.
L'Kulam.
Yom Tov, guys. See you next week.
Amen.
Bye bye.
Stay safe.